My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us and very pleased to be joined by Texas Longhorns soccer head coach Ange Kelly, who joins us now. Ange, I'm going to start like I do with all the other coaches and ask not only how you and your family are doing health-wise, there's always the concern of all of that with everything we're dealing with right now, but also your group, your student athletes, how everybody is first and foremost health-wise, and then how they're dealing with all of this.
Yeah, Craig, it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and thanks for asking. Knock on lots of wood and lots of prayers. Everybody in my immediate family is safe and healthy. I have my parents and my brother. My parents are up in Southern Ontario. My brother's up in Vancouver. So I think Canada's doing a great job of organizing everybody. And my sister's over in Knoxville, Tennessee with her family, and everybody's safe. So that's wonderful. For our team, which is a responsibility, every morning I wake up is to try to check in on that very question, with health being first. They're all healthy. And when you talk about the sphere that encompasses, right, we're talking about aunts, relatives, grandparents, siblings. I think everybody has been very respectful in society and understood the importance, and our team is certainly taking responsibility for their own behavior. And like I said, knock on wood, everybody is healthy today. I had a call with them today, so they are healthy today. And we've actually really embraced this time just to be able to, in an odd sense, spend more time together. It is virtual. It is from a distance, but there is a little bit of intimacy that you can get with it, and getting to know small groups or individuals or within a team dynamic. So we're trying to pull out every positive we can, and certainly look forward to getting back on the 40 acres.
You bring up an interesting point here, and you talked about spending more time. And I've noticed it was with my own family just being sheltered in place, that when we spend more time together now, and it's and I think that's a good thing. That's a byproduct that's come out of this as well. But I hadn't really considered it from the virtual perspective, since we're all kind of close in place. So would you say that it really enhances the relationship, the fact that you have with your players, your student athletes? You can't be right there with them, but yet you are able to have these conversations virtually, that it has kind of developed and enhanced not only your relationship with the guy, but with each of them with one another on this virtual level?
Yeah, I think, this whole circumstance has caused a moment of pause and a moment of reflection. I think society was going on a pretty negative decline of communication skills, of being present. Lots of people wrote about being present. Lots of people preached about being present. And yet, as a society, we seem to get further and further away of being present, locked into our devices, locked into a million different other things that we could be possibly doing and connecting with, opposed to where our feet are. And I would have been hard-pressed to find a time when our student athletes were on campus that I could set up a Zoom call during a training time. It could have been, say it's during a training time. I know nobody has any conflicts at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't have looked at me sideways like, what, Zoom call, right? Now, because of their circumstances and being disconnected physically from one another, now they are looking forward to our calls. They can't wait. We talked right away about our social norms in the virtual platform. We know in team meetings what our norms and our rules are. What are the rules that are going to be acceptable when we are virtual? The team came up with these norms. And to their credit, there hasn't been one person signing on late without texting and telling us of their technical difficulty, which we've been able to help them. There hasn't been one person on their phones. They're sitting up straight. They're connected. And sometimes our calls are going for an hour and 15. And as a staff, we've we've guided initially, and now that's a lot player-led in terms of the content of the meeting as we've progressed. So I just really feel such a value as the head coach. Is our connectivity greater? 1,000%. As odd as that sounds. Is our culture enhanced? 1,000%. Do we appreciate one another more? Absolutely. Do we have a hunger to play this game? 1,000%. Are we counting down the days, the minutes, the hours, the seconds that we can get back together on the 40 acres? Absolutely. So here you have it, all those things that maybe the young student athlete took for granted. Now they're like, I'm so grateful for that. So I hope, you can only hope that through this, the silver lining will be that in society, you'll see a lot more people having conversations. You'll see a lot more people present. And that would be my hope.
I always ask the coaches have on these calls about the challenges that their student athletes are going through academically right now with doing things online. Your group historically has always been very, very good in the classroom anyway, but even for very, very good students. For example, in visiting with Shaka Smart, he was talking about Kamaka Hepa, who is a 4.0 student, has been since he arrived on campus. But here's a guy that's up in Ukivik, Alaska, trying to deal with it all, and he was a little bit uptight about making sure he maintained his 4.0 GPA. So that even with a group of good academicians that you've had in the classroom, as well as what you've had on the soccer field, what has it been like? What's the feedback you're getting from them on the challenges that they are dealing with academically with their lectures and classroom work, as well as their work away from the virtual classroom academically going through all of this?
Well, from the moment this occurred, Friday the 13th, when Chris Del Conte met with all our teams, and we were going on an extended spring break, hoping to be back. As soon as we realized that this was going to be on hold, our first charge was, are they safe? Are they healthy? Next priority was academics. What does their setup look like? Do they have the proper connectivity for their Wi-Fi connection? Do we have all their syllabi, or when do they have their next report due? When is their exam, so that we could enhance what our academic advisors were already doing. So we have touch points with our players once every day on an academic perspective. Because it was going to be different. We have a few 4.0 students as well. That can even raise their stress level, because they're not getting that human connection. 80% of the communication amongst people used to be from the nonverbal. Well, now they're not getting that, right? So they're not getting to sit in that classroom. How is that going to impact them? So we did a lot of Zooms initially, just trying to see what their body language was and what their responses were. But I'm pleased to say that they've gotten into a routine. We knew that routine was going to be key. The ones that get really stressed about exams or tests coming up are still getting stressed and anxious. So that's positive, right? So that hasn't changed. And performance has been very, very good. And, a couple different things attribute there. Now they're back at home, right? They're usually, when they were at home in high school, there was probably 80% of the time there was a parent present that was making sure that they were getting their work done. I think parents are now, because they've been away, they're more hands off, but it still takes them back to that high school moment when they had more of a home base and a structure. So we've been really pleased with their performance. Every day we ask them if they have everything they need. We were getting positive reports that of high grades on exams. The papers are getting turned in on time. They are having quite a few Zooms with their professors or with their TAs. So as much as we can keep it as normal, the new normal as possible, we're trying to do that. But I've been really pleased on the academic standpoint.
Tell me if you've encountered this, because several of the coaches I visited with said the same thing. Their best students, the ones who are at the top of the heap academically, are the ones who find the pass-fail option most distasteful. They don't want that at all. They're going for the A, and they want to make sure they get the A. So that option isn't even an option where they're concerned.
Yeah, I think pass-fail is what, 25% less than average, right? So it's mediocre at best. So when you naturally pursue excellence in what you do, and you have a passion for what you're pursuing, you want to do it at the highest level, right? And then again, there's probably some students that are swimming in blue chips because it was going to be really difficult to get that grade, right? Maybe they would have had to take in the class over again. That's not specific to my team, but I'm just saying, like, there's the flip side to how you're benefiting here. But from our standpoint, yes, the type A personalities, which we have quite a few, they're going for it. If they have an opportunity to finish and not take the final exam, those young ladies, they're taking it every time. And any extra credit they can do or they can achieve, they're going after it.
You brought up training, and this is something else I asked the coaches. How well can you handle the training element when they're not together? And I know the fitness thing of being able to run is one thing, and maybe they can do some skill things with a ball, independently, but not having a team workout, an organized team workout. How is the team handling the training element, and how are you and the coaching staff and your training staff dealing with how they handle the training element of it?
Well, we talked about it from the very first moment. There wasn't one team in this country that got the head start on this, right? And it's not like Europe is rocking and rolling and everybody around the world is doing something different than what we're doing here in North America. Everybody has caused for a pause. And so when everybody gets quickly put to zero, and then you just wait day by day to see your endpoint, it's all up to you. It's all up to you and the outcome that you have for yourself. So we very quickly had them understand that perspective, and how are we going to make this work for us? How are we going to be the best team coming out of this? The rules restrict us from doing any virtual training, so it's very much player-led. We have groups of 4, and we have leaders within those groups. They're having their own form of accountability, which I think our leadership is doing fantastic in these moments. We have our strength and conditioning coach that's sending out information each and every week, and then the leaders are sending out to each of their groups as to what they're going to do every day, and then how they're going to give information back to one another. Sometimes they do their workouts together via the technology, which I've heard that they've really enjoyed doing that. As for the ball skills, we have an app that they can use, that they get some technical work, and we have probably 5 sheets of different kind of ball skills, progressions that they can go through. But to be honest, this generation, and I wish I could find a synonym for generation, because they don't like to be called it. I don't want to call them it, but for the sake of our conversation, this generation does not or hadn't known how to be bored. They don't know how to be bored. And I'm a firm believer that in boredom grows ingenuity and creativity. When do you think about it, and Craig, I think you and I aren't so far off one another. I mean, we used to do puzzles. We used to do all the things that you hear families are doing now. We used to have family dinners. We used to be told to get back outside until the streetlights stay on and just entertain yourself, right? This group hasn't had to do that. So if I think about my creative playmakers in my sport, are they just getting their visions from what their coaches are telling them? Maybe some of them have seen it on TV, but if they really went out there and figured out how to train themselves or practice some trick shot over and over and over, like we used to when we were young. So in another odd sense, because I'm the eternal optimist trying to find the gold lining in all of this, is how creative can they be? We just talked about the fact that it's all up to you. It's all up to you as to how far you want to succeed during this time, right? So how is the University of Texas women's soccer program going to be exploding through this? How are you as an individual going to be exploding through this, hitting the ground and being so much further along than where you were from a skill standpoint, from a physical standpoint? And just encouraging, planting seeds. Be creative. Make mistakes on the ball. You only need a 3x3 little grid to play with the ball. You have 100 million miles in the air, and you just need a small little phone box of a space. You can be creative. They can put a million different rocks or running shoes in that small area, and they can use it like a little minefield and do all these ball skills around it. I mean, there's a million things that they could do that they've never had to do before because they've always waited for their coach to start a session. And I think that goes in youth sports in America, and I think that's one of the things that Europe is so much further along, at least in our sport, in the game of soccer. There's so much more creativity because they go out and they play on their own. And I hope that our players are really embracing that like they say they are.
You mentioned leadership. When you have 21 letter winners returning from an NCAA tournament team, when you have proven performers like a Julia Grosso or a Haley Berg or an Emma Regan, when you have those types of players and leaders, does it make the learning curve or having to deal with all of this a little easier for the group as a whole because you have leadership like that?
Well, I think leadership is key, right? And players such that you just mentioned with the type of experience they have and their wantingness to be successful, I feel like there's more of a drive. There's more development of the leaders. There's more willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. And then there's just the people like a Julia Grosso who, in her own right, is coming off of a disappointing experience, not being able to go to the Olympics, right? So I want to make sure that you don't take that for granted in her, right? This is a harder time, right, to be disappointed, but she's raring and ready to go, knowing that this fall is going to be a platform, and then next spring, and then next summer, and then so on and so forth. And then the Haley Berg, the likes of the Haley Bergs are stepping up. Emma Regan, you've just named, our leadership along with Peyton McGee. So these players are stepping up. But Craig, our incoming class is very motivated as well. We have two internationals, Amelia Abbott, Charlotte Blumel from Germany, Amelia from New Zealand, that we're going to be going to play on their U17 World Cup team, ready for the World Cup, right? And having had stints on the U20 team and Charlotte with the full German national team. And then we have 9 incoming players. We have 5 of those from Dallas, a young lady from Houston, and a young lady from Colorado. That class is, for whatever it's worth, coaches always know this, on paper, 8th in the country, right? So we're expecting great things out of them. Yes, they are freshmen. Yes, they have to get through the transition. But when you have international experience, such as I just mentioned, they're going to bring experience to the table like a Julia Grosso did right away.
By the way, has it been a little more challenging for your internationals who are part of the program, as well as the internationals you have in the recruiting class, to stay in regular contact with them, or is it worked out in terms of the virtual meetings just as well in Germany as it would be in Houston?
Well, yeah. So as I mentioned, our progression in leading them in this virtual world, it's very much player-led. And now in our small class, we have class meetings once a week that is led by a player that is selected at the end of one meeting. The next player gets to set the agenda for the following meeting. And that's been really interesting because I just say hello to everyone and I hand it over to this individual, whether it's the freshman class, the sophomore class, or the junior class. And they get to, their instruction is make it informative, make it connective, make sure there's engagement, and make it conclusive. And then they get rated on all of this at the end of their meeting by their peer group. And they've really, really embraced that. But in our freshman class, our 2020 class, we have 3 that are currently on campus mid-years. So not those 3, but the other group that hasn't arrived on campus yet, we have New Zealand, we have Germany, we have Colorado, we have Central Time here in Dallas, right? And we have Houston. So how do you guys want to organize? What time is available next week? Well, it turns out that it's usually 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That means Amelia Abbott's waking up for this group at 6 o'clock in the morning. And Charlotte Blumel is staying up at 9 o'clock and going to bed after 10 so that we can all talk together. But it has been great. And they've all really enjoyed the time. And our 2 internationals don't seem to mind waking up early.
Okay, a couple of final things. First of all, so I was told this in advance of the My Texas tailgate coming on, this campus-wide celebration, that you have been instructed, you were drafted into the service of recreating the call that I was fortunate enough to have the 2009 Big 12 football championship game at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Hunter Lawrence, 46-yard field goal to beat Nebraska. Is that true? How'd all that work out?
The hold by Shipley, good hold, good snap, 46 yards. It's good. Hunter Lawrence sends the Longhorns to Pasadena while also winning a Big 12 championship.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. That was well done.
Well, Greg, nice. What an exercise. I enjoyed it. I watched it briefly. I love the game of football, so I've watched it. But I just credit to you. It is so difficult to be in the moment and to be able to, an exciting moment, and come up with the descriptive words that all of the viewers still need to see while you're sharing your own excitement. And I think in our sport, the closest thing is when you say, go, right? So you were like, it's good! It's good!
Yeah, and by the way, some of my excitement off that rolls all the way back to my soccer past of working 1994 World Cup games, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, calling Argentina against Bulgaria, calling a goal from Risto Stoichkov, or Uche Okafor, that sort of thing. So it takes me back to my soccer past off of that. All right, final thing here, and this is something that I always conclude with the coaches. What's the ongoing message you have to your group, your student athletes, about as we all meander and work our way through this, getting back toward the eventual goal of being back on campus, back on the field, back in a normal state, so to speak? What's the ongoing message you have for your players?
Sharpen your edge. It's all up to you. Sharpen your edge. It's all up to you. We're going to be back on the 40 acres. You're going to be back here soon enough. And when you come back, your edge better be sharp.
Terrific. And it's always great to visit with you. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to visiting again down the road when we do get back to our regular meeting. Until then, stay healthy, and best of luck and success to you and your family throughout all this. We'll look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Welcome.
That's Ann Kelly, the Texas soccer coach, here on TexasSports.com.